Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
Welcome to the Infowars Nightly News. It is Friday, July 24th, 2015, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here is a look at what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, no time is wasted blaming conservative America for another gun-free zone murder. And author Jim Marrs shares his research on population control. That's next on the Infowars Nightly News.
We're in a savage, toe-to-toe war, and guess what? We've got some good blows in with the truth, fighting with two daggers in our hands, and the globalists are stumbling around bleeding all over the place right now. The problem is they're about to counteroffense. I can tell you right now. You got to get in there, and we got to deal with them politically. We got to sever their head politically and expose them for the murdering, ghoulish, organized crime, narcotics trafficking, child molesting, absolute scum of the earth, garbage, filth that these maggot-infested demons are.
To celebrate the birth of our country and give a big thanks to all the info warriors out there, we are now offering free shipping on every item shipped out of the InfowarsStore.com warehouse. That's free shipping on all t-shirts, books, and DVDs. Free shipping on Molon Labe and 1776 belt buckles, which are also 25% off while supplies last. Free shipping on all of our InfowarsLife.com nutraceuticals. If it's in the InfowarsStore.com warehouse, it's shipping for free, all during the month of July. It's our way of saying thanks to the true heart and soul of this operation, who stand beside us and support us as we wage an info war for liberty and freedom for all. InfowarsStore.com, free shipping for the month of July.
Well, immediately in the wake of the Lafayette theater shooting, we are seeing the left sharpening its claws for gun control. Quite funny, since that's not what we were hearing all last week when it was a Muslim shooter. Now, 59-year-old John Russell Hauser has been identified as the shooter in this, and we are seeing people rushing to Twitter demanding that because of that, all white men must be disarmed, even though white people are responsible for just 2.5% of all gun crime in major cities like New York. Now, you can just take a look at all of the tweets there. Mass shooters are always the lone white males. Prohibit gun sales to lone white men only. It goes on and on. That's the whole thing, except for white guys. They're the only ones that can't have guns. Once again, time has proven that white people with guns are the biggest threat to American citizens. But this logic is, of course, insane, because as we pointed out time and time again, people ignore the other gun crime that's out there when they want to grab the guns. The anti-gun people ignore the fact that black people are responsible for over half of the homicides in the United States, even though they only make up 13% of the population. In major cities like New York, African Americans comprise over 70% of shooting arrests. Hispanics comprise about 25%. Whites there in New York City, 2.5%. And, people are constantly ignoring those facts, ignoring the fact that every weekend in Chicago, 40 people are shot. No one ever wants to talk about that. A BuzzFeed news editor, of course, because they are part of the establishment media now, immediately rushed for gun control. And one respondent remarked, "If you were in that theater, you might have a different perspective right about now. Take guns from law abiders." Great idea. And that's what we're pointing out again and again, is that these type of things happen in gun-free zones. But it's also kind of funny, going again with the hypocrisy of these anti-gunners. Another leftist journalist said, it would be funny if all gun rights people got shot dead. So it's really funny how people are anti-gun until they want to threaten to shoot up people that disagree with their ideology. And of course, immediately in the aftermath, we have the corporate media linking the Louisiana shooter to the Tea Party because he apparently created an account on Tea Party Nation website. But they also haven't really pointed out that he's got a manifesto. Isn't it funny how these guys always have a manifesto? And his little manifesto online, he admits to being an Obama supporter. He liked Obama's plans. He liked his, his policies. So not your average Tea Party member there. But of course, as Paul Joseph Watson points out, the left is not going to blame all Muslims for the Chattanooga shooting. They did not call for gun control. I mean, really, they did not call for gun control after the Marines were shot. The president didn't even put flags at half-mast and wouldn't even dare utter the words Islamic extremism because that does not fit the agenda. Now, let's take a look at the way Alex Jones kind of broke this down for us today on the radio show.
But this is how they can make a mountain out of a molehill. 2 people are dead. It's very tragic. Upwards of 100 people die a day on the highways. Are we saying ban cars? 2 dead, 6 wounded, a gun-free zone. Well, Paul Watson has the article, Infowars.com. Don't blame all Muslims for Chattanooga, but blame all conservatives for theater shooting with no evidence yet that this guy was a Tea Partier. But Tea Partiers on record, Justice Department's own numbers, conservative libertarian people have the lowest crime rates out there in studies and the highest level of charitable giving. Look it up. Just type conservatives, libertarians, highest level of charity study. Type in Tea Party, lowest crime rate. It is a fact. People self-identifying as conservative or constitutionalist or libertarian have the lowest crime rate. But if you watch mainstream dinosaur media, when they're not telling women to have special devices so that they can pee standing up, or telling women to show they're feminist by having green or purple underarm hair. By the way, will you give me the New York Times and Yahoo? People don't believe me when I mentioned it yesterday. This is the top stories. Have green underarm hair. Pee standing up if you're a woman. White men are inherently bad. Whites are criminals. Whites are dangerous. And you sit there, MTV, New York Times, MSNBC. It is crazy town. And then out of 330 million people, there's just crime and murder going on by the hundreds every day, because that's what's always happened. Overall crime since 92 is down 61% according to Professor Lott. The Justice Department says 51. Whatever. Let's just say 51% drop. 51% drop since 1992. And you would believe there is a insane epidemic of people swinging from chandeliers, shooting everybody. And the only place that's happening is the south side of Chicago, New York, D.C., has some bad areas of Dallas, Houston. I mean, every major city has bad areas where there's a bunch of drug dealers and criminals and all the rest of it. And that's what goes on in those areas. And the criminals gravitate to those areas because they can get away with it. They can then go out of the crime area, rob the middle class, rob the suburbs, rob working class folks, and then come right back into their warrens. And that's what's going on. And you go to those neighborhoods, there's white scum, there's black scum, there's Hispanic scum. They're all scum in there feeding on good people and poor people that live in those areas. And scum all acts just the same. They just got different colored skin. And so, I mean, I was there this morning, and I watched for like 30 minutes, and then I came back and watched another 30 minutes. I was on the elliptical for like 25, then I was halfway watching it while I was lifting weights, then I watched it for another 30 minutes getting ready. And I never saw any information, just the police acting like it was the end of the world, the governor acting like it was the end of the world, everyone just acting like it's this giant, spectacular theater event. I mean, if a chemical plant blows up and kills 50 people, it's on the news for a couple hours. If there's a highway pileup and it kills 100 people, it's hardly even in the news. If bad stuff gets in the water, and it kills 14 people, it's not even in the news. But if 2 people get shot in a theater, oh my gosh, We're defenseless in a theater. A shooter could pop up any minute and kill us. It's creating the perception that imminent death could happen at any minute. And why is a Republican governor playing along with this in Lafayette, Louisiana? What is he doing within hours of it in breathless press conferences? It's bizarre, but it shows how mainstream media has lost its credibility. It's falling apart. Its ratings are declining steadily, but still it can put on a hoax. Still it can make something like this the top story.
So there it is. We see this agenda play out again and again. The only time we are going to hear these calls for gun control is when the suspect is the stereotypical white male, because that fits the agenda of right-wing extremists. Every time we see a Muslim going on a shooting spree, the left basically falls all over itself to blame it on the Koran, or any attempts that you would have to blame it on the Koran or religion. They want to say that you're being racist. So that standard is not applied the other way. It's not racist to say all white people need to have their guns taken away. Paul Joseph Watson points out that in the aftermath of the Boston bombings, the news outlets like Salon, they were insisting that all Muslims need not apologize for the bloodshed there. But of course, that's not what happened after Charleston or Chattanooga as well. He also points out that that call was strangely absent when at least 14 people were killed after an incredible 82 shootings over the July 4th weekend in Chicago alone. So, I mean, we see this hypocrisy again and again. But now we have one more anti-gun fantasy. This is coming from Raf Sanchez. He's a writer for The Telegraph. And he suggests that more ISIS terrorism in the United States could be the answer to the end of the Second Amendment. So he's actually making the argument that if we have some more ISIS extremists shooting up recruitment centers and everything, that will make people see that this is a national crisis and that we need to give away our guns. I mean, is that not absolute fantasy there? It does not even make sense. Have more ISIS terrorists shooting places up, so then America will go, okay, you're right, let's give up our guns, because again, let's unarm the people who are using their Second Amendment to protect themselves from criminals. My goodness. And of course, like we keep pointing out, those recruitment centers are still unarmed, even though they are receiving active threats. Now, there was an unspecified shooting threat that came just 1 week after the Chattanooga shooting. Joe Biggs reported on this breaking news earlier this morning, and now that has been confirmed that the Tampa recruiting offices were evacuated due to this shooting threat. We want to go ahead and say thank you to our noble info warriors there on the ground who were able to get us in these photos confirming that Tampa recruiting offices were evacuated. Joe Biggs made calls to several of those recruiting centers, and you can see a lot of the photos there that they were closed for the day. If you'll scroll down, you can see the empty offices there. So Joe Biggs was on the Alex Jones Show today with an update.
Today, I actually got some information from a friend in Georgia. Now, his son lives in Tampa, Florida. He roommates with a recruiter at one of the local stations in that area, and he has given us information saying that they have been told to evacuate. Now, Don Salazar and myself have both called numerous recruiting stations without any answers. The phone will ring and or go to a recorded statement at that point. Now we have confirmed, though, we actually have a listener who has gone down to the numerous recruiting centers in Tampa, has taken pictures of empty offices. So this is happening due to a threat that they got for a shooter that could possibly happen. Now, earlier in the week, I spoke to a recruiter in South Austin who said that some of the offices in Las Vegas and Florida were getting threats of another attack. Now, this comes a week after the shooting in Chattanooga that left numerous Marines and a Navy sailor dead. So we've got to take this seriously, and I want people in that area, to be on watch. And if you can, if you know anybody in those areas, call them, make sure they're okay, find out what's going on, and send us some tips.
Now, frankly, I'm sick and tired of talking about mass shootings. Do I think it's okay that someone went and shot up a movie theater or that we're having to hear about this again? Absolutely not. But we have to, because we're the only people that are going to push back against this anti-gun agenda. The only people that are going to expose what this is really all about, to take the guns away from Mr. and Mrs. America. But you know what? Don't take my word for it. This is the great gun debate. Why don't you listen to the anti-gunners in their own words?
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
But I also believe that a lot of gun owners would agree that AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
We just have to be repetitive about this. It's not enough to simply have a catchy ad on a Monday and then only do it every Monday. We need to do this every day of the week and just really brainwash people into thinking about guns in a vastly different way.
Enough. Enough.
Enough.
Enough.
Mayor Bloomberg, how you doing? Jason, I grew up in Brooklyn. In the spirit of gun control, will you disarm your entire security team?
We'll get right back to you.
You'll get back to me?
They may feel that it's part of a romanticized culture. There's an aspect of this, a kind of Wild West cowboy Dirty Harry aspect. There's also an aspect.
So they're macho men and they gotta have a gun.
Go ahead, make my day.
Anybody that wants to disarm me can drop dead.
Vice President Biden and I had a meeting with a group of technology people and talked about how guns can be made more safe by making them either through fingerprint identification, the gun talks to a bracelet or something that you might wear.
Anybody that wants to make me unarmed and helpless, people that want to literally create the proven places where more innocents are killed, called gun-free zones, we're going to beat you. We're going to vote you out of office or suck on my machine gun.
Yes, that's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns.
Guns will be taken. No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
I believe that as Americans, we have a right to arm ourselves against criminals, but we don't need the ability to arm ourselves against the Army or the police. The United States military is not out to get us.
And I think that's a healthy thing to question your government. I don't think it's particularly healthy to question the military.
Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
I don't want that man to have a gun. I wouldn't feel comfortable having an argument with him in his home.
Challenge Alex Jones to a boxing match, show up with a semi-automatic that you got legally, and pop him.
I'd love to see that. In uniform.
You don't have that much time to take away Americans' guns, declare martial law, and put hardworking Americans in FEMA camps. If you're going to do that, you better get started. You better get started.
Coming up, David Knight will be joining me in studio to talk about a new report coming out of the Department of Defense, warning about the future of warfare, and it predicts drones and super soldiers are going to be manning the skies and on the battlefield. And that is an insane report. But first, the amazing journalist and author Jim Marrs will be joining me in studio to discuss his new book, Population Control, and how it's the corporatocracy that's the real beast. Stick around.
Brain Force is here. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been on this the last few months. You probably noticed I've been more crazed, more focused, less brain fog, more energy, more special reports, and it's because of Brain Force.
We kept changing this formula over and over and over again until it became sort of a grand puzzle. For example, the L-theanine inside of it, that is activated by the different compounds in the yerba mate that we put inside of it as well. This just increases the compounds you already have.
This is what you're actually designed to run on.
Exactly.
It's kind of like a car will run on one form of junkie gas, but it runs really good on what it's designed for.
And that's the principle of Infowars Life, as far as I understand, that you've always had, is that it's not about synthetic chemicals and forcing actions. It's about letting your body do its own thing and giving your body the tools it needs to create these different compounds that are super valuable and super beneficial.
You will find Brain Force and other game-changing products at InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.